Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is titled People Who Get Emotional When Things Don't Go Their Way. So recently I was using this app that I really enjoy. I've mentioned it before. It's sort of like a smaller version of Twitter. You can post topics, which are basically the same as tweets, and you can interact with other people's topics. It's a fun platform, but it's also a place where things can get heated really quickly. Anyway, I wrote a particular topic that upset some people, quite a few people actually, because as you probably know, everyone seems to have wildly different opinions on things. That's fine, of course. People are entitled to their opinions, but what happened next is what got me thinking. The topic I posted stirred up some controversy. And listen, I understand that not everyone is going to agree with me. That's just the nature of the world. People disagree. But here's the part that's frustrating. Instead of having a rational discussion or even a calm, mature debate, people just lost their cool. They went straight into emotional overdrive. You know, I get it. We all feel strongly about certain topics, but instead of explaining why they thought I was wrong or offering their perspective in a way that adds something to the conversation, a lot of folks went straight to personal attacks. And that's where the problem is, right? You can disagree with someone, but you can still have a meaningful conversation about it. You can explain why you see things differently without attacking the person who holds the opposite view. That's how you have a productive conversation, but these people just couldn't do it. They were emotional, and they came at me hard, full of insults and attacks on my character, rather than focusing on the points I made in my topic. And this got me thinking. Why do people get so emotional when things don't go their way? It's almost like we've forgotten how to communicate when we're faced with differing opinions. It reminds me a lot of children, actually. You know, imagine being at Walmart, right? You're there to pick up a few essentials, and as you're walking near the toy aisle, your kid sees a toy they want. They grab it off the shelf, and when you tell them no, when you tell them to put it back because they're not getting it today, they lose it. They start stomping their feet, crying, screaming because things didn't go their way. It's pretty understandable for a child to act that way. They don't know how to express themselves yet. They don't have the tools to articulate what they're feeling, so they cry and pout. But when adults do the same thing, it's a whole different story. It's frustrating, honestly, to see grown adults acting this way when they're faced with something they don't like, or when someone disagrees with them. And what's worse, it's not just a few people. It feels like more and more people are acting like this when they encounter opinions or perspectives that don't align with their own. They throw tantrums. They lash out. They go straight to emotional outbursts, as if that's going to make the person they're arguing with change their mind. But here's the thing, and this might be a newsflash for some of these folks. Not everyone in the world is going to agree with you. It's just not going to happen. People have different experiences, different upbringings, different viewpoints. That's just life. So no, you're not entitled to throw a fit just because someone doesn't see things the way you do. It doesn't give you the right to be disrespectful. It doesn't give you the right to attack someone's character or insult them. You can express your disagreement in a way that is productive, and that's a choice. It's always a choice. The way you choose to handle disagreement says a lot about you as a person. It shows your character. I mean, think about it. How can you expect to have a productive dialogue with someone if you're just hurling insults at them? You can't. It's impossible. People don't respond well to personal attacks, and honestly, I don't blame them. Who would? When you're in a conversation with someone and instead of discussing the issue, they attack you personally, there's no way that conversation is going to lead anywhere positive. But even beyond the personal insults, you can't really have a meaningful conversation with someone who's just too emotional. When someone is caught up in their feelings, they're not in the right mindset, actually I should say mind state, to have a constructive disagreement. They're not focused on the points of the conversation. They're just reacting. It's like their brain short circuits, and all they can do is lash out. And that's a problem, because if you can't control your emotions, how are you supposed to engage in real dialogue? Honestly, it feels like a lot of the population is stuck in this childish way of thinking. It takes a lot of work, a lot of self-discipline to develop a mature mindset. It's not easy. That's why it's not as common as it should be. People don't want to put in the effort. They don't want to do the hard work that's required to have a strong, disciplined mind. And look, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I've got it all figured out. But I do know that when someone disagrees with me, I don't immediately resort to emotional outbursts. I try to keep my cool. I try to engage in a conversation, even if it's a tough one. But that's just my experience. I'm not saying I have all the answers, and I'm certainly not claiming that I know for a fact that people are getting more immature. I mean, it's impossible to measure something like that. But from what I've seen, from my own personal experiences, it really does feel like a lot of people have trouble handling disagreement in a mature way. And listen, I get it. Not everyone is going to agree with me. That's fine. But there's always a more polite, more productive way to express your disagreement. I'm not saying there's a right way, but there's definitely a way that's more likely to lead to real conversations. And who knows? Maybe those conversations could even lead to deeper discussions. Maybe we could find common ground or come up with solutions. But that's not going to happen if we're all just screaming at each other like toddlers, throwing tantrums. Like I've said in other rants, there will always be people who throw hissy fits when things don't go their way. It's not like this rant is going to change the world overnight. I get that. But wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where people actually stopped to think before they reacted emotionally? Wouldn't it be nice to have conversations that don't devolve into name-calling and personal attacks? I've talked about this before. I made similar points last year, and the fact that it's still so relevant today is honestly kind of depressing. It feels like people aren't learning from their mistakes, and that makes it hard to have hope for the future. If we can't even have a simple conversation without people losing their cool, how are we supposed to move forward? How are we supposed to solve the bigger problems we face as a society? Take a moment to think about your own experiences. Think about the last time you disagreed with someone. Did you get emotional? Did your reaction help the conversation, or did it shut things down? It's important to recognize when our emotions are getting in the way of real progress. It's okay to feel strongly about something, but you've got to be able to express those feelings in a way that keeps the conversation going. Otherwise, you're just yelling into the void. You can disagree with someone and still show respect. You can express your thoughts without making it personal. It's all about how you choose to engage. And when you approach disagreements with an open mind and a willingness to actually listen to the other person, you create an environment where real dialogue can happen. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we all want? To have conversations that lead to growth and understanding, instead of arguments that just leave everyone feeling angry and frustrated? I think we'd all prefer that. But it takes effort. It takes patience. It takes a willingness to step back and not let our emotions control the conversation. And sadly, not everyone is willing to do that. Anyway, thank you for listening to this episode of Moore's October Rants. Signing out, have a good one. Goodbye.